Today's math assignment for Monday is you can either log into the HMH Player app, and the assignment for the app is the Identifying Opposites and Absolute Value of Rational Numbers homework, or the book assignment is page 62, number 10 through 12. So that's just this page, 10, 11, and 12. So we're going to do a few examples, and I'm going to help you through this assignment because last week we really did struggle with rational numbers, and last Friday's assignment was 1 through 9 up here, so we're also going to go over that. We'll go over that first because that'll probably help us. So find the equivalent fraction or decimal of each number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a blank slide for my kind of note-taking page. And I now have 0.6. So I need to change that to an equivalent fraction. So we remember the place value. The place value tells you what your denominator is going to be. And remember, a fraction is the numerator over denominator. So the place value tells you your denominator because this is in the tenths spot. It's going to be over 10. And then the actual number is the numerator. So 6/10 is an equivalent fraction, but what we learned last week is that we really have to find the lowest form of our fraction. If the top and the bottom have a greatest common factor that's greater than 1, you can simplify it. So I'm going to factor the number 6. I know it's 1 times 6, 2 times 3. So 1, 2, 3, and 6 are my factors. And then 10 is 1 times 10 and 2 times 5. So I know that they share 2. So I'm going to divide the top and the bottom by 2. So 6 divided by 2 equals 3, and 10 divided by 2 equals 5. So my answer for that one would be 3/5. So I will go up and I would write that on my line. Now let's look at 2, which is 1/4. Find the equivalent fraction or decimal for each number. So this one might be a little bit more difficult for you. What you're going to do is you rewrite your fraction, and to be able to easily write it in a decimal, you need to multiply your denominator by some number to equal 100. Because your denominator, when it's over 100, then you can easily put your numerator behind the decimal. So I need to know my multiplication facts to be able to do this. And remember, whatever you do to the bottom, you must do to the top. So 4 times 25 equals 100. So at the top, I'm going to do 1 times 25. So this is not the answer. We still have to write it in a decimal. So I'm going to put 0.25. Because this 5 here is in the hundredths spot. So that's why my denominator is 100. And then you write this whole number up here. So we have 0.25 as our final answer. So I'm going to write that as well. Number 3 is 0.9. So I'm going to look, what place value is that 9 in? It's 1 behind the decimal, so it's in the tenths. So I put it over 10. Now my numerator is just the number that they give us, so I have 9/10. Now I know that 9 and 10 do not share any factors other than 1, so that's my final answer. And then I have 0.1. I'm going to do that on the same one. Same situation. The place value is in the tenths, and my numerator is just a 1. That can't be simplified, so that's my final answer. Then I have 3/10, and I need to change it to a decimal. That's easy. If it's in the tenths If the denominator is 10, you put 0 point, and the numerator goes in that first spot. So your answer is 0.3. Now number 6 is 1.4. That's a little bit more difficult because we have a whole number now and a decimal. So I have 1.4. So this would translate to a mixed number because we have a whole 1. So that's going to equal 1. And then we're going to do the same thing with our decimal. The numerator would be 4. The denominator would be 10 because that 4 is in the 10th spot. However, that 4/10 can definitely be simplified. The number 2 fits into both 4 and 10 equally. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So my new answer is 1 2/5 because you can't remember your whole number. Remember, that's where we got that whole number. So your final answer is 1 2/5. Then we have 4/5. We need to change to a decimal. So remember, you want to multiply that number by something to equal 100. So whatever you do to the bottom, you must do to the top. So this is super easy. 5 times 20. So whatever I do to the bottom, I must do to the top. 4 times 20, if you don't know that off the top of your head, you can do some multiplication. 4 times 0 is 0. 4 times 2 is 8. So I have 80 over 100, and remember, I am not done. I need to now write that as a decimal, which would be 0.80, because the 0 would go in the 100th spot, so I write the full 80. So 0.80. Now my next one is 0.4. So what place value is that 4 in? It's in the tenths. So we put it over 10. And didn't we just do one very similar to that? We just did it right up here. We simplified it, so we have our final answer already. It equals 2/5 because the numerator and the denominator can both be divided by 2. And then our last one is 6/8. So this one's a little bit more difficult. 6/8. When you look at that, you're like, 8 times what number equals 100? I don't know. But luckily for us, this is easily divisible. If we divide the top and the bottom by 2, we can get our denominator to be 4. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Now we can multiply by some number to equal 100. So remember, 4 times 25 equals 100. So whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. 3 times 25. Well, I can't do that in my head, so I have to write it down. 3 times 5 is 15. I carry my 1. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So we have 75 hundredths. So we'd write our 0.75. That would be the final answer to Friday's homework. Hopefully you got all those right. Hopefully there are no problems. It's not too difficult. It's just a lot of steps. Now we need to use the number line to order fractions and decimals from least to greatest. So let's just try to plot them on the number line. So the first one is 0.75. So that's going to be the easiest one because we have a 0.7 and a 0.8. So that's going to be right in the middle, right there. So I'm going to just plot my point. Then my next number is 1/2. And if you remember from last week, we learned that 1/2 is the same as 0.5. Then our next one, 0.4. That's super easy. Now 1/5, that's going to be pretty difficult because we need to get our denominator to be 10. Because these are all in tenths. 5 times 2 equals 10, so 1 times 2 equals 2. If I have 2 tenths, I'm going to write that as a decimal, 0.2. So that goes right here. So now I just rewrite that. So I have 1/5, because that was my 0.2, 0.4, and then I have 1/2, and then the 0.75. So that's how you order it from least to greatest. And remember, you always want to order in the form they gave you. Now, number 11, the table shows the lengths of fish caught by 3 friends at the lake last weekend. Write the lengths in order from greatest to least, so from largest to smallest. So they all have a whole number of 12. So now we have to look at our fractions. We have 0.7, 3/5, and 3/4. All right, so 3/4 equals 0.75. We did that up here in number 9. 6/8 is the same as 3/4. So we know that that's 0.75. Now to get this into a decimal, we want to get our denominator to 10. 5 times 2 is 10, so 3 times 2 is 6. 6/10 is 0.6. So now I have 12 and 7/10, 12 and 6/10, and 12 and 75/100. So from greatest to least, it would be 12 and 3/4. Then we'd have 12.7, and then 12 and 3/5. List the fractions and decimals in order from least to greatest. All right, so again, we have the whole number of 2. So now we have to look at our decimal and fraction. So we have a 0.3, a 4/5, and a 0.6. So this is pretty easy because our 4/5, we just need to get that into something over tenths to turn it into a decimal. So 4/5, we know 5 times 2 equals 10. 4 times 2 equals 8. So that is 0.8 right there. So I'm going to rewrite them as 0.3, 0.8, and 0.6. So now you can easily see, well, from least to greatest, it would be 0.3, 0.6, and 0.8. So 2.3, 2.6, and 2 4/5. That's my final answer. And remember, you always want to keep it in the same form it gave you. So that's today's homework explanation.